everybody. Welcome to our live. Before we get started, I just have a few announcements. One, the summer reading program will be ending soon, so don't forget to sign up, log your minutes. You have till August 15th. Don't be afraid to backlog. If you previously have read during the summer time, feel free, sign up, register. We still have plenty of prizes. If you've earned any prizes, feel free to come to the children's desk and just let them know your name and we'll get you your prizes. We still have some cool ones left, like these little superheroes. We have some unicorns left, a bunch of dragon gliders, some water toys. We have a bunch of stuff. So feel free, stop by, get your prizes. Okay, I will pass it over. So we'll get the show started.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Allie. So, yes, my name is Priscilla Howe, and I'm a storyteller, but I have this funny interest in the country of Bulgaria. Most people say, Bulgaria? Where is that? We've never heard of that. Or where is it in Europe? Yes, it's in Europe. Bulgaria is just north of Greece and just south of Romania and just to the west of Turkey and just to the east of Serbia and Macedonia. And it's a small country, about the size of Tennessee, Kentucky. And I lived there in the 80s, in 1983, 84. I lived there for a whole year and I learned the language pretty well. And then in 2015, I got a Fulbright scholarship to go back to collect stories. In the fall, my book is going to come out, my collection of Bulgarian folk tales called Clever, Kind, Tricky, and Sly. And so that's why this is called the Trickster Show. Hey, speaking of tricksters, Trixie? Yeah. Trixie, do you know we're doing Facebook Live right now? Oh, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. Do I look okay? I want to look good for TV. We're not, Trixie, we're not on TV. Are you sure? Yeah, yeah, we're on Facebook Live for Rolla Public Library. But we're doing a show called The Trickster Show. And I wondered if, since your name is Trixie, if you happen to be a trickster. A trick? Never, never. I never play tricks. Never, never, never. Well, I think sometimes you do. A trickster is not, it's somebody who plays tricks, but is really just very clever, sometimes not so clever. Sometimes tricksters, they're not as clever as they think. Oh, that's true. And in Bulgaria, there are quite a few of them. Do you remember any of them? Well, there's Kumalisa. Kumalisa is the tricky fox. Should I start with one of those stories about Kumalisa? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to go have a sandwich. You're going to go have a sandwich. We're doing a show. I know, but I didn't have lunch. Okay. You go have a sandwich. Oh, wait, let me just say one thing. I am not Baba Yaga. She makes me scared. Oh, yeah, does she make you scared? Are you a witch? No, I'm just an old lady. I'm 111. Yeah, well, okay, you go sit down. I will never call you Baba Yaga. But I noticed that in the chat. She does sort of look a little like Baba Yaga. And actually, I don't know if you know that, but that's the pronunciation of that name, Baba Yaga. So this story, though, is called Kotanbe. And I went to Bulgaria in 2015, and I was so lucky. I got to go work in the archives of the Institute of Ethnology and Folklore Studies and Ethnographic Museum. And so I went to the archives, and this is the first story I found in the archives. It's called Kotanbe, or sometimes it's called Bai Kotaran. There was an old woman who had a cat, and that cat got into the butter every single day. One day, the old woman said, "That's it. Get out of here, cat." And she swept the cat out of the room, out of the house. The cat went down the road. Cat went down the road, and he came to a house. And he smelled something. The window was open, and the cat smelled stew. Gyuvech. That's a Bulgarian kind of stew. It smelled delicious. He jumped up on the windowsill. He jumped into the house, and there was a big pot of stew sitting cooling a little bit. But Kumalisa, the fox who lived there, wasn't home. And so the cat, Kotambe, began to eat that stew. And then Kotambe stretched and curled up and began to snore and purr at the same time. You could do that part with me if you want. Well, Kumalisa, the fox, came home and she heard someone inside her house. She said, "Someone's in my house. Someone's in my house, and they're playing the bagpipes. The gaida. I love the bagpipes. In Bulgaria, there are bagpipes just the way there are in Scotland. I love the bagpipes." And Kumalisa began to sing along with the bagpipes. She began to sing, nee, 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 nee. Well, that woke up the cat. And the two of them sat and they ate more of the stew, more of the gyuvich. And they talked and they fell in love. They decided to get married. Kumalisa went to see her friends. She called a bunch of animal friends. She said, "Guess what? I'm getting married." They said, "Who are you going to marry?" She said, "I don't think anybody here knows him. His name is Kotambe, but he's a little bit dangerous. He's a little bit dangerous. I've seen his claws. Ooh, they look a little dangerous. And he has sharp teeth, sharp teeth. Ooh, a little bit dangerous." Well, all of the friends said, "We'll bring a feast. We'll bring a feast for your wedding." Kumcho the wolf, said, "I'll bring a roast lamb." And Baba Metza, the bear, she said, "I'll bring a barrel of honey." And the Gligan, the wild boar, the wild pig, said, "I'll bring some green corn." And Zayubayu, the bunny, the rabbit, you know what the rabbit brought, right? Carrots. Of course. Of course. And so they all brought this food to have a big feast with Kumalisa and Kotambe. So they called Kumalisa out. "Kumalisa, bring out Kotambe." Kumalisa came out. She said, "Oh, you know, he's so dangerous. I think that you should hide, and then I'll send him out and you can see how he is. I'm just a little bit worried. He's kind of a bad boy." Well, they hid. The Gligan, the wild boar, the wild pig, hid in the leaves under the oak tree with just one ear sticking out. And Baba Metza, the bear, she climbed up in that tree. And Kumchu hid in the bushes near the tree. And Zayubaya was in the tall grasses. The bunny, the rabbit, was in the tall grasses. And then they called out, "Kumalisa, we're ready." So Kotambe came out. Meow, meow. He looked this way, he looked that way. He didn't see Kumalisa's friends. But he saw something. In the leaves, under the oak tree, moving a little bit. Could it be a mouse? So that cat crept up and jumped right on the wild pig's ear. The wild pig went, "Ow, ow, ow, ow," and that scared the cat. The cat jumped into the tree, and Baba Metza saw the cat coming and was frightened, and so she jumped out of the tree and fell right on Kumchavulcha, the wolf's back. And at the same moment, an acorn fell out of that tree right into Zayubayu's ear, right into the rabbit's ear. All of the animals went running. Kotambe went back to Kumalisa. And the other animals ran in the other direction. They caught up with each other and they said, "Oh, that was awful. That Cotombé is so dangerous." The Gligan, the wild boar, came at me with his sharp claws. It was awful. It was terrible because it just scratched me all up on the ear and everywhere. And Baba Metza the bear said, he came running up in the tree, was going to attack me. I jumped out of there. And Kumchavolcha, the wolf, said, "I think they threw a big rock on my back. It really hurt." And Zayubayu said, "I think somebody had a pistol and shot me in the ear. It was awful. That Cotombé is too dangerous. We are not going back there." And they didn't. But Cotombé and Kumalisa went and got all that food. And they ate and they drank and they danced for a week. And that's the story of Cotombé. So that was the first story I found in the archives and of the Institute of Ethnology and Folklore Studies. But I already had a few Bulgarian stories that I loved to tell. So now I want to tell you one of those. I would like to tell you the story of the fox and the hedgehog. This is another story that's found in other cultures. That last story I told it, and a Ukrainian friend of mine said she knew that story as a Ukrainian story. These stories travel around. So fox and hedgehog. I know that it's a story also from Russia, but I like the Bulgarian version. Kumalisa, the tricky fox, she's found in a lot of stories. Kumalisa went to see her friend Eshkobeshko, Taralej, hedgehog. And she went to Eshkobeshko and said, "Eshkobeshko, let's go to the vineyard, the farmer's vineyard, and pick some of the grapes because they are so juicy, so delicious, perfectly ripe." Eshkobeshko said, "No, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea at all. Remember, the farmer digs pit traps. He digs these holes for animals to fall into as a trap, and he covers them up so we can't see them, and then he catches us. I don't think it's a good idea." But Kumalisa said, "Oh, Eshkobeshko, I have 220 ideas on how to get out of a trap. I can get us out of any trap. I got 220 ideas right up here in my head." Eshkobeshko said, "I only have 3 ideas." Kumalisa said, "Don't worry about it. Come on, let's go." And they went to the vineyard and they began picking those grapes, and they were so sweet and so delicious. They began eating those grapes. Oh, so delicious. And boom, Kumalisa fell into a trap. "Eshkobeshko, help me out. I can't get out. I can't get out. I can't get out. Please help me out." Eshkobeshko said, what about your 220 ideas? "I can't think at a time like this. Come on, help me out, please." Eshkobeshko said, "Okay, I'll give you my first idea. The farmer will come and he'll get you out of the trap. So you should pretend to be gentle and somewhat tame and rub your face on his arm and be sweet. He'll loosen his grip and you can run away." And that's what happened. Eshkobeshko went home. And the farmer came along and said, "Oh, look at that fox. My wife is going to have a nice fox fur wrap to wear." And he reached in and he got Kumalisa out of the trap, and she just rubbed her face on his arm and twined her tail. And he said, "Oh, you're a nice one." And he let his grip go just a little bit. Kumalisa took off running. She ran home. But the next day, she went back. She went back to Eshkobeshko and said, "Eshkobeshko, let's go back to the vineyard and get some of those grapes. They're so delicious. Come on. They're so juicy and ripe. Let's go." Eshkobeshko said, "You got caught in a trap yesterday. I don't think it's a good idea." Kumalisa said, "No, no, 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 no. Don't forget, I've got 220 ideas right up here in my head. I can get us out of any trap. Got these ideas up here." Eshkobeshko said, I've only got 2 ideas left. Don't worry about it, Eshko Beshko, let's go. Come on. And they went to the farmer's vineyard, and they began picking those grapes, and they were sweet, and they were delicious, perfectly ripe. And boom, Kumalisa fell into another trap. Eshko Beshko, please help me out. I can't get out. I can't get out. Please help me out. What about your 220 ideas, Kumalisa? I can't think at a time like this. Eshko Beshko, please give me one other idea. Eshko Beshko said, okay, I'll give you my second idea. The farmer will be angry this time. And when he comes, he's probably going to hit you in the head with his stick. You should pretend to be dead. Then he'll throw you in the back of the wagon, and you can take off. That's what happened. Eshko Beshko ran home, and Kumalisa was there in the trap. The farmer came along and said, you got away yesterday. You won't get away today. And he picked up his stick and cracked Kumalisa over the head. She almost didn't have to pretend. He threw her in the back of the wagon, and then he set off toward home. And as he was going toward home, Kumalisa took off running. She ran home. But she went back. She went back to Eshko Beshko the next day. Eshko Beshko, remember, those grapes are so delicious. They're so tasty. Let's go get some grapes. Come on. Come on. Eshko Beshko said, I only have one idea left. I don't think it's a good idea. Hey, don't worry about it, Eshko Beshko. I got so many ideas. I got 220 ideas right up here in my head. Don't worry. Let's go. So they went to the vineyard, and they were picking those grapes, and they were sweet. They were juicy. They were delicious. Oh, so tasty. And Eshko Beshko fell into a trap. Kumalisa, please help me out. I can't get out. I can't get out. Please help me out. Kumalisa said, I can't help you out. I have to save my ideas for myself. I might get caught. Eshko Beshko said, oh, I see how it is. We've been friends a long time. Won't you at least give me a little kiss on the nose before I perish? Kumalisa reached her nose down into that trap, and Eshko Beshko jumped up and bit Kumalisa right on the nose. Kumalisa threw that hedgehog right out of the trap, but her nose hurt so much she twirled and twirled and twirled, and she fell right into the trap. Eshko Beshko, help me out, please help me out. I can't get out. I can't get out. I can't get out. Eshko Beshko said, oh, Kumalisa, I'm so sorry. I used my last idea. I don't have any more. So sorry. But help me out, please. I can't think at a time like this. I don't have any more ideas. Eshko Beshko went home. Farmer came along, and I'm sorry to say that his wife had a beautiful fox fur wrap. And that's the story of the fox and the hedgehog. So I had been telling that story for a long time. I found it in a collection in the library at the University of Kansas, and I loved that story. And I loved a lot of different stories. I loved stories of different tricksters. In Bulgaria, there's some other tricksters. There's a human trickster named Clever Peter. And there's another human trickster named Nasruddin Hoxha. That's a Turkish name. The Turks, the Ottoman Empire, had been in charge in Bulgaria for over 500 years, for a really long time. And so there are a lot of Turkish things in Bulgaria, and so a lot of borrowings. And so Nasruddin Hoxha is one of the tricksters we hear stories about in Bulgaria. Let me tell you one. Let me tell you a story that has both of these tricksters in it. So as I said earlier, sometimes the trickster is clever and sometimes not. The story is almost always clever. I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you 3 stories now that I told at a Bulgarian storytelling and joke-telling competition called the Blagolage. I heard about this. It happens every 2 years. And I heard about it, and it was the right year. And so I wrote and asked how I could apply to be in it. I had to make an application. I had to send the stories that I intended to tell written down. That's tricky for me because sometimes I don't write them down. But I had some help from a friend to write them properly in Bulgarian, because this competition would be in Bulgarian. And I was accepted to be in the Blagolaj. I went the night before, and there was a big party. There was a parade, because it was the whole weekend of humor in the city of Gabrovo, which is known as the capital of humor in Bulgaria. It's a very fun little city, and in that city there's the House of Humor and Satire, a museum all about humor. There was a big competition for cartoonists that weekend also. Well, the Blagolaj happened in the morning, and so everybody got there at 9 a.m. for this storytelling and joke-telling competition. And first there were dancers. They were from Mickey Mouse Preschool. So they were very small children dancing traditional dances in traditional dress. It was very nice. And then, after the children danced, there was the children's competition. It was very different from Bulgarian storytelling festivals in the US. There were tables with microphones at the table, sort of like a press conference. And so the children were seated behind the microphones. And the very little ones did just little bits of stories with help from some grown-ups. And there was one who said, with the microphone right there, this little one started a story this way. Imo едно време. That means once upon a time. And that child stopped right there, but got some help from an adult. And then after the children were done telling stories, there were 10, 15 children or so. Then there were prizes. There was a jury who judged the stories. And then there were prizes, and then it was time for the adults. And we sat behind those microphones at the tables, and I thought, good, I'm near the beginning. I can get this over with. I'm a little bit scared because it's in Bulgarian. And I started, but then it turned out I was near the end. So I started with this story about Nasruddin Hoxha. One day, the Hoxha, which is it's a title. The Hoxha was sitting on a branch, and he was sawing that branch off. He was sitting on the branch that he was sawing. Clever Peter went by down below. He said, "Hey, you're gonna fall." Hoxha kept on sawing. He said, "Mind your own business." Clever Peter said, No, you're sawing off the branch that you're sitting on. It's gonna break. You're gonna fall. Go away. Mind your own business." And he kept on sawing. Clever Peter just kept on going. He shrugged and walked on. And the Hoxha saw it, and he saw it, and he saw it, and boom, he fell. He stood up, he dusted himself off, and he ran after Clever Peter. He said, "Stop. You told me my future. You told me that I was going to fall, and I fell. So you know how to tell the future. Tell me, when will I die?" Clever Peter said, "I don't know when you're going to die." No, you do know. You told me that I was going to fall, and I fell, so you know how to tell me the future. So tell me, when will I die? Clever Peter said, I really do not know." "Don't hold back. Tell me, when will I die?" Clever Peter said, "Okay, you need an answer. All right. You will die when your donkey has farted 7 times. Hoxha said, "Really? Thank you." He went back to his donkey, and he cut up the wood that he'd cut out of the tree, and he put it on the back of his donkey. He had all kinds of tools on that donkey. He had a shovel, he had axes, he had a saw, and it was a little bit heavy for the donkey. He said, "Take it easy, donkey, take it easy." And he set off for home with his donkey and the wood, the heavy load of wood. And as he was going up a little hill, he heard something from the donkey. Oh no, that's one. That's one. That clever Peter told me I would die when my donkey had farted 7 times. Take it easy, donkey. Go slowly. They kept going up this hill, and it was a heavy load, and suddenly, oh no, that was 2. That's 3 in all. I only have 4 left. Donkey, slow down. The donkey kept on going, and 4th one. Hodja said, oh dear, I should probably start to dig my grave. And he took the shovel off of the side of the donkey, and he began to dig his grave right there in the middle of the road. He dug and he dug and he dug until he had a pretty good sized grave. And as he was digging, of course, yes, the donkey pooted again. That's 5. 6. Oh no. He sat down in the grave and waited for the last one. The last fart. And then he lay down because he knew he was dead. Clever Peter had told him he would die at 7. So he lay down right there in the middle of the road in the grave. But there was a camel driver taking his camels to market, and the camels all wore bells. The Hodja heard the sound of little bells, and he didn't know what it was, so he sat up out of that grave, and that scared the camels. And they started going in different directions. It was really hard for the camel driver, who came over to see what the problem was. And he saw the Hodja in this hole in the middle of the road. And the camel driver was irritated. He took his stick and he started to hit the Hodja, who stood up, ran out of that grave, and ran all the way home. He got to his house. He said to his wife, whoa, oh my gosh, I died today. I have to tell you, I died today, and the camel drivers in heaven are just as bad as the camel drivers here on earth. And that's the story. That's the first story I told. Well, we got done with that round in the blagolage, in the competition, and the judges said, oh, tell another little one. Oh, okay. The other one I had to tell, I didn't want to tell it yet. I didn't know what to do. So I remembered a story that a friend of mine on the street in Sofia had told me. I made a friend with a man who played harmonica on the street. One day I was going down the street and I heard harmonica, and I play harmonica. And this man was playing. And I knew that my harmonica was the same key as his. At first, I'd heard him earlier. I'd heard him playing, and I thought he was just doing this. But this time I heard that song, Oh, Susanna, and I thought, okay. And I went and I stood right next to him. And I played my harmonica. It startled him, but we became friends. I told him what I was doing in the country. I was looking for stories. And he had told me this story, but so this was a couple months earlier I had met him, but the weekend before, or a few days before, he had told me this little story when I told him I was going to the blagolage. So I thought, oh, I'll tell Roman's story, Roman Rimsky. And so I told this one. Clever Peter had a cart and horse, and the horse was pulling the cart up a hill, and the horse said, I don't feel like pulling this cart up the hill. And the cart said, oh, I've never heard a talking horse before. That's the shortest story I tell now. That's the short story. So I told that second. And then the judges went away. And I thought, good, I probably have finished. I probably am not going to be in the next round. That's good. I just want to listen. But the judges passed me on to the next round. So I had to tell another story. So my other story was this one. Clever Peter no, it wasn't the Clever Peter. Sorry, this is a Hodja story. Sometimes there are stories about Clever Peter that are also told about the Hodja. Sometimes there are stories about the Hodja that are told about Clever Peter. But this one is the Hodja. The Hodja went to the bathhouse. In those times, in those days, long, long ago in Bulgaria, not everybody had a bathroom or a bathtub, and they would go to a public bathhouse. So the Hodja went to a bathhouse to have a bath. He was a bit scruffy, a bit dirty, and his clothes weren't the nicest that day. And the attendant gave him a threadbare towel, a little sliver of soap, didn't scrub his back. Not very good service. And when the Hodja left, he gave the attendant a very large tip, quite a bit of money. The attendant said, "Oh, thank you very much. Thank you." The next week, the Hodja went back for a bath, and the attendant was right there. He had a big fluffy towel and a robe and a fresh cake of soap and the best bath slippers, and he scrubbed the Hodja's back. And when the Hodja left, he gave the attendant a very small tip. The attendant said, "Was there a problem today?" Hodja said, "No, your service was excellent. Thank you very much." "Why do you ask?" "Well, this tip you gave me today, it's quite small, whereas the tip you gave me last week was quite big." The Hodja said, "Yes, the tip I gave you last week was for the service today. The tip I gave you today was for the service last week." Well, I finished. That was my last story. I didn't have any more. But of course, the judges said one more, and I thought, oh no, what am I going to do? So I told a joke, not a Bulgarian joke. And I explained that it was not a Bulgarian joke. You might know this joke. The man who went to the doctor, and he had a piece of lettuce hanging out of his shirt, and he had a piece of carrot in one ear, and a piece of celery in the other, and an olive up one nostril, and a grape up the other. He said, "Doctor, I've been feeling awful. I've been feeling run down. I do not feel good." And the doctor said, "Well, obviously you're not eating right." We finished that round, and I thought, okay, I'm done. But they said one more. What was I going to do? But they had only one of the storytellers tell a story, and so then they said, no, we actually don't have time. And they went back and they deliberated, and they came back to give the prizes. And I have to say, I won a prize. I did. I won the prize for vivid presentation by a foreigner. I was the only foreigner. But it was very fun to be in that competition. It was very fun to collect stories. And there was another story that I heard from a friend of mine, my friend Christo, who was an excellent storyteller in his own right. He's not just a storyteller, but he collects stories from some villages in the mountains. He's really a treasure. Anyway, he told me this story about Baba and her rooster. Baba is the word for grandmother. So there was a grandmother and a grandfather, a Baba and a Diado, and they didn't have much money. And one day their rooster came to them and said, "Cuckoo, cuckoo, I'm going out to make my living. Cuckoo, cuckoo, I'm going out to make my living." Well, Baba said, "I don't know how you're going to do that. You're just a rooster." "Cuckoo, cuckoo, off I go to the castle." Well, the rooster went to the castle, went outside the gates of the castle, and called out, Cock-a-doodle king, send me your eldest daughter. Cock-a-doodle king, send me your eldest daughter." Well, he wouldn't stop. And the king sent his eldest daughter out. She found this rooster in the cabbages. She said, "Ugh, it's just a rooster." She went back into the castle. Cock-a-doodle king, send me your middle daughter. Cock-a-doodle king, send me your middle daughter. Well, the rooster would not stop. So the king sent his middle daughter out. She found that rooster in the cabbages. It's just a rooster. Ugh. She went back in the castle. Cock-a-doodle-king, cock-a-doodle-king, send me your youngest daughter, send me your youngest daughter. The king sent his youngest daughter, because that rooster would not stop. The youngest daughter went out and said, it's a rooster. Come on in. And the youngest daughter took that rooster right into the castle, and she gave it some corn to eat. The rooster wouldn't eat. Eat, eat. Come on, yash, yash. Rooster wouldn't eat. So the king said, if that rooster won't eat, throw it in the dungeon. They threw it in the dungeon, down below in the dark and the damp. There was not much light in the dungeon, just one little ray of light coming down onto a pile of something. The rooster went over and pecked at it, and in that light, that one little ray of light, the rooster saw that it was gold. Gold pieces. And the rooster started putting the gold under its feathers, all over its body, putting the gold right under its feathers, poking it right in. And then the rooster lay down as if it were dead. The guards came down and said, look at that rooster. Dead. They threw it out in the garden. And when they'd gone back into the castle, the rooster stood up and went home. Baba said, oh, good, our rooster's back. And the rooster said to Baba, hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. Hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. She said, I don't want to hit you. You're our dear rooster. Hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. Hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. No, I don't want to. I don't want to hit you. Hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. Hit me on the top and hit me on the bottom. He wouldn't stop. Baba took her broom and not too hard. She hit that rooster on the top and on the bottom, and gold fell out of his feathers. She and Dado gathered up all of the gold, and they hid it in a good secret place. And they had enough gold to last the rest of their lives. But Baba talked to her neighbor. She liked to talk to her neighbors. She told her neighbor what had happened about the rooster going up to the castle, coming back with gold. The neighbor said, So the neighbor said to her own cat, I want you to go up to the castle and get me some gold. The rooster next door did that. You go on up there. The cat said, do I have to? The neighbor said, yes, you do have to. So the cat went up to the castle, sat outside the gates and said, meow, meow. The eldest daughter came out. She said, look, it's a kitty. Would you like some milk? And so the eldest daughter brought a big bowl of milk out for the cat. And the cat ate that milk and went home. The neighbor saw the cat coming and said, good, you brought me some gold. You were really quick. Quicker than the rooster, I bet. And she picked up her broom and she hit the cat on the top and on the bottom, and the cat took off running and never, ever came back. And the neighbor never got any gold from the cat or from anywhere else. And that's the story of Baba and a rooster. I'm going to tell you one last story. What about a Clever Peter story? Oh, how about this one? Clever Peter. Well, he was famous. Everybody knew about him, but not everybody knew him. And one day he was sitting in a little coffee house attached to a hotel. And the men around him were talking about Clever Peter. That Clever Peter. He can't be so clever. I mean, we've heard of him, but I'm more clever than he is. Another man said, oh, I'm sure I'm more clever than he is. And they talked and talked and talked about Clever Peter, not knowing he was sitting right next to them. And he said, Is anybody here gonna need a shave or a haircut today? Because I'm a traveling barber and I need a little work. I don't charge too much. The other men said, well, it's Saturday night. It's the night for our shave. Well, yeah. Well, how much do you charge? And Clever Peter gave a very low price. He said, and the men all agreed. They wanted a shave. They didn't need haircuts, but they just needed a shave. He said, Clever Peter said, you go to your rooms and I'll come one by one to you and I'll give you a good shave. I got to go get my tools. Well, the men went to their rooms and Clever Peter went to the innkeeper and borrowed some towels and some soap and a bowl of warm water. He went to the first man's room and he lathered that man up and lathered him up a little bit up here to get the eyebrows and lathered him up just a little bit extra. And he said, I've forgotten my razor. I'll be right back. And then he went to the next man's room and he lathered that second man up and lathered up here in the eyebrows. Oh, forgot my razor. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. And he went to the next man's room and he lathered him up and lathered him up in the eyebrows and the soap was running down. And he went to every single room like this and lathered up all of the men. And then he went to his own room and he lathered himself up. Well, you know what happened, right? That soap was running into the eyes of these men and they were waiting and waiting and waiting to be shaved. Where's that barber? Where's that barber? And Clever Peter himself said, where is that barber? Where's that barber? The innkeeper had to go around to each one of them with a fresh bowl of water so that they could rinse themselves off. And Clever Peter was long gone. He'd rinsed himself off and he'd run out the door, but he left a little note saying, Clever Peter, barber. I do like that Clever Peter. He likes to trick people. So that's one of the stories that I found. Now that one I did find in a book. So I was looking for stories wherever I could find them. I would hear people tell me stories on the street. I would find stories in the archives. I even found stories in the archives of the House of Humor and Satire. I'll tell you the last one. The House of Humor and Satire, I found this story. There was a man who was he was going along with his horse and cart, and he came to a mud puddle, and he got his cart stuck in the mud puddle. He could not get it out. There were a couple of men lying under a tree nearby, and he said, hey, would you help me out here? Well, they agreed to help him out for a price. And so he agreed. He had to get his cart out of there. And they pushed and pulled and shoved, and they got that cart out of the really big mud puddle. The man said, you just made a pretty good tip. Here you sit all day long doing nothing, and you just made a pretty good tip. And Clever Peter and his son said, yeah, we did. But then the son said, you think we just sit here all day doing nothing. We spend all night filling that hole with water to get that mud puddle that way. That's a lot of work. We're not so lazy as you think. That's the cart in the mud puddle. Anyway, so I was really happy to collect all these stories, and pretty soon they're coming out in a book. And you might watch my website, PriscillaHowe.com, for information about that. Or you might look up Parkhurst Brothers Publishing. That's where it's going to come out. I want to thank you all for being here today. I hope you liked the stories. I wondered if you had any questions, because if you have questions, you can put them in the comments, and I'll be able to answer them. If you have any comments or questions, also, if you want to come to my daily story time, it's every weekday I do a story time every single weekday. You can go to priscillahowe.com and look for the online performances tab um, in the menu, and you'll see where to register for that. Those are stories for kids. The name of the book that's coming out is Clever, Kind, Tricky, and Sly, a Bulgarian folktale sampler. How's that for a mouthful? And I think anybody else have a question, a comment? Oh, one more thing. On Friday, I'm doing a kind of Facebook workshop. It's tricky to do that, but a workshop on telling folk tales. So if you're interested in how to learn folk tales, where to find folk tales, how to play with folk tales, come on over to this same Facebook Live for the Rolla Public Library, 5 p.m. on Friday, um, in our time zone anyway. Check that out at the Rolla Public Library website and Facebook page. So I think, Allie, we might be just about done. Thanks so much for coming, everybody.
Yeah, before we close out, I'm going to announce a few more things. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., we're doing our story time. If you liked the Trickster Tales, we are doing another one. It is Coyote. It is an American Southwest Trickster Tale. So join us for that. Like Priscilla said, she'll be back on Friday. And also, if you like these videos and you want a good place where they're all put together, if you check out our YouTube channel, it's Rolla Library. Just go there, subscribe, and you'll get notifications for all of these videos. And last but not least, for our summer reading program, as I said, it ends August 15th, and that's when we're doing our drawings. So if you've registered on Beanstack, go to the drawing section and enter your tickets. It doesn't do it automatically, you have to pick. So don't miss out your chance to win prizes. Thank you so much for coming, and see you next time. Okay, bye.
Thanks a lot.